Humanity had long been a species defined by struggle, adaptation, and the unspoken belief that the universe, in all its silent immensity, simply had no interest in it. For centuries, Earth had ignored every interstellar summit, dismissed every invitation from powers older than its continents, and declined every opportunity to join alliances that span the galactic arms. The great federations and empires of the cosmos interpreted Earth's absence as fear, arrogance, or irrelevance. Yet none of them understood the truth. Humanity had been busy preparing for the moment the universe would finally come to its door, not with diplomats, but with something far more catastrophic. For decades, hidden beneath oceans, buried in deserts, and orbiting behind veils of classified shadows, humanity had been gathering remnants of knowledge left by the first probes that brushed against cosmic borders. They had studied the ruins of forgotten civilizations scanned in passing. They witnessed patterns burned into star fields that suggested wars so vast they rewrote the structure of nearby space-time. Humanity learned silently, observed patiently, adapted relentlessly. And as the world governments built powerful shields around Earth's skies and crafted engines capable of bending local gravity, humanity's true disposition emerged. A species that prepared without boasting, that engineered without asking permission, and that refused to acknowledge any boundary that could be overcome with enough stubbornness, innovation, or sacrifice. While the greater galaxy believed Earth uninterested, humanity was simply waiting, knowing that one day silence would shatter. That day arrived without warning. Across the expanse of the Perseus Gap, where dark matter seas swirled like a cosmic undertow, sensors from 100 civilizations detected the same anomaly, a fleet materializing from the deep void beyond mapped territory. It didn't emerge like traditional armadas that tore open slipspace in volatile cascades. Instead, it unfolded from the vacuum as though awakening from a long slumber. No one recognized its signature. No empire admitted ownership. No archive carried even a whisper of its origin. 2,000 vessels, not built by any known race, not communicating, not negotiating, not slowing. They headed straight for the Orion Cygnus arm, straight for the region humanity called home. Panic ricocheted through the cosmic community. Empires mobilized, coalitions argued, and for the first time in its history, Earth found itself at the center of the galaxy's attention. Shock rippled through alien councils when Earth, after centuries of silence, finally responded, not with resignation, but with a simple broadcast, a declaration that humanity would handle its own defense. The galaxy trembled at the implication. The newcomers, massive, cold, and utterly unreadable, cut through border systems like indifferent machines, reducing outposts to drifting ember. Yet Earth refused offers of aid. It issued no threats. It simply prepared. And in that preparation, the galaxy would soon learn what humanity had become. In the weeks before the Armada reached the sole frontier, humanity entered a state of unified focus not seen since its earliest struggles for survival. Every nation synchronized its resources. Every orbital factory ran at full power. The great shipyards birthed vessels that seemed impossible for a world formerly considered technologically modest. Engines howled with artificial singularities. Hulls shimmered with adaptive armor woven from metamaterials reverse-engineered from cosmic relics. The human fleet did not look like a reactionary assemblage of desperate ships. It looked as if it had been waiting for this moment. The citizens of Earth, watching from cities illuminated by soft atmospheric shields, felt the rising gravity of the era. It wasn't fear that defined them. It was a strange exhilaration, an ancestral spark that whispered of primal tests and impossible odds. Humanity had been underestimated for so long, dismissed as latecomers, minimized as youthful idealists. But humanity's history was a saga of defying extinction at every step, of hauling itself through each trial the universe threw at it. And now, the greatest challenge had arrived not as a chance for diplomacy, but as a crucible of annihilation. The alien Armada's arrival into the outer rim of Sol space ignited a tidal wave of gravitational distortion. Their formations shifted with eerie precision, moving as if controlled by a single vast intelligence. Their hulls bore markings that looked less like symbols and more like scars, ancient burns cooled into metallic sleep. Their propulsion was silent, as though they glided on inertia alone, yet they moved faster than most recorded vessels. Humanity watched through the lenses of deep-range telescopes. Predictions flooded across tactical networks. Supercomputers modeled probabilities of survival, and yet something peculiar emerged. Humanity's own analysts refused defeat. They understood something the other civilizations didn't. They understood themselves. Earth's Strategic Command had long theorized that if an unknown threat ever emerged, humanity's unmatched unpredictability, its chaotic creativity, its refusal to conform to the patterns that governed other species, might be the very thing that turned the tide. Humanity's strength was not technological supremacy, though its weapons now rivaled the great powers. Its strength was the refusal to accept any scenario as impossible. As the Armada advanced, humanity executed its first test. A wave of autonomous drones, millions of them, launched from lunar bastions and deep-orbit foundries. They formed a vast sphere, a false perimeter designed to cloak Earth's true tactical structure. The alien vessels pierced the formation without hesitation, shredding drones by the thousands. But what the invaders could not detect was the data. Every drone recorded, analyzed, and transmitted information on the newcomers' weapons, shielding, inertia fields, and micro-warp fluctuations. Humanity treated the loss not as defeat, but as the opening act of a long-planned strategy. The galaxy observed through distant probes, expecting Earth's defenses to crumble next. But Earth did not crumble, it adapted. Humanity's scholars had once written that knowledge was humanity's oldest weapon, older even than fire. Now, in the dark of interplanetary space, humanity wielded that weapon with chilling precision. The second phase began when Earth's gravitational pylons activated, generating artificial distortions along the predicted flight paths of the alien vessels. These weren't designed to destroy the intruders, but to force them into new trajectories, subtle course corrections that seemed natural at a distance, but nudged the Armada toward a kill zone carefully carved into the space between Mars and Jupiter. There, humanity had assembled something it had never shown the galaxy, the Aegis Array. Constructed in secrecy, powered by stellar siphons and quantum thread reactors, the array formed a colossal ring spanning millions of miles, composed of satellites, weapon platforms, and gravitational anchors. It represented centuries of fragmented research unified into a single purpose, an interlocking defense system capable of manipulating gravity, radiation, and electromagnetic fields with surgical precision. As the Armada passed into its shadow, something ancient within humanity stirred, a sensation written into DNA, recalling the primal moment when early humans stared down predators vastly more powerful than themselves. It was the same instinct that urged them to sharpen stones, light fires, build cities, craft engines, and reach the stars. Humanity had never been prey. Humanity had always been the species that learned how to win. With the Armada now trapped within the vast unseen geometry of the Aegis array, humanity triggered the first pulse. A wave of gravitational inversion rippled across the fleet of intruders. Their formations faltered, their inertial consistency fractured. Vessels that had moved with unnatural precision now drifted out of sync, as if the invisible cords binding them had been severed. The intrusion of this vulnerability into their perfect advance marked the moment the galaxy realized something previously unthinkable. Earth had outmaneuvered a force capable of shredding entire star systems. The alien vessels retaliated with radiant beams that sliced through space like burning scythes. Some platforms in the Aegis array were destroyed instantly, scattering fragments into the void. But humanity had anticipated such violence. The surviving arrays reconfigured, adjusting formation and recalibrating gravitational parameters faster than the attackers could compensate. Humanity's resilience manifested not as brute strength, but as a living algorithm of adaptation, responding to every blow with relentless efficiency. Inside Earth's command nexus, signals cascaded across multiple layers of strategic AI, each cross-referencing possibilities with centuries of human tactical doctrine. The machines recommended actions, but it was humanity that approved them. Humanity always made the final decision. It was a legacy of agency that no AI, however advanced, could replace. The second pulse struck the Armada harder than the first. This time, the gravitational shockwave destabilized several of the invaders' main vessels, causing their internal structures to ripple like molten metal. Something ancient and terrible within those ships reacted violently, something biological entwined with machinery so old that no archive in the galaxy had ever recorded it. Flashes of dark matter discharge erupted from their hulls. The Armada began losing ships, not from human fire, but from internal collapse triggered by environmental stress humanity had engineered. Across distant star systems, alien species watched in awe. They had once dismissed Earth as primitive, naive, disconnected. Now they watched humanity manipulate gravitational forces with techniques once believed achievable only by the elder races. As the battle raged, humanity revealed yet another truth about itself. It did not panic under pressure. It did not collapse in the face of annihilation. It fought with the precision of a species that had survived millennia by mastering the art of making the impossible achievable. And yet, even as the invaders struggled, humanity understood a darker reality. The Armada's composition suggested a civilization of immense age, possibly one that originated beyond known cosmic epochs, from regions predating galactic formations. Their vessels were not merely warships. They were artifacts shaped by unfathomable eras of conflict. Humanity grasped that this fleet was not the entirety of the threat. It was merely the beginning. Still, humanity refused to falter. The third pulse of the Aegis array shattered the last remnants of the Armada's formation. Hundreds of vessels broke apart under tidal forces. Those that survived struggled to reorient. In that moment of collapse, humanity unleashed its final phase. A swarm of anti-singularity missiles, each guided by gravitational threads, weaving through the chaos with inhuman accuracy. The missiles detonated in synchronized bursts, producing cascading ripples of folded space that tore through the surviving vessels. When the waves dissipated, the armada that had terrified half the galaxy drifted as debris fields, silent, burning, defeated. Humanity had won the first battle, but the victory brought no celebration. For humanity understood something more terrifying than any annihilated fleet, a force capable of deploying such vessels, a species that could create machines that felt older than starlight itself, would not be deterred by the loss of 2,000 ships. Humanity stared into the void beyond the Perseus Gap and felt the pressure of an unseen gaze looking back. The real war had not yet begun, and humanity, for the first time in its history, allowed itself a moment of fear, not because it doubted its strength, but because it understood the magnitude of what awaited. Earth had finally looked up, and something ancient, powerful, and infinitely patient had noticed. The debris of the defeated armada drifted across the void like the remnants of a broken prophecy. In the aftermath of the battle, the quiet of space became heavier than any roar of weapons that had come before. Humanity, suspended between triumph and unease, found itself staring into the dark gulf where its unexpected enemy had emerged. For the first time in history, Earth understood what it meant to be noticed by something ancient, something that had watched the galaxy evolve. With the indifference of a storm watching the growth of forests it would one day consume. The world below felt the victory like a tremor, not a celebration. Cities remained steady but vigilant, and every civilian who gazed toward the brilliant streaks in the night sky understood instinctively that what had been repelled was not the climax of a story, but the opening chapter of a conflict too vast to grasp. Lights flickered across continents as humanity entered a new age defined not by the battles it fought, but by the shadows cast by the unknown. In command hubs buried deep beneath mountain ranges, humanity's greatest minds pored over the wreckage now collected by drone barges and orbital retrieval ships. The remains of the enemy vessels defied classification. Their metal was neither alloy nor organic tissue, yet bore traits of both. Their internal structures wound into impossible geometries, as though the ships had been grown rather than constructed. No seams, no rivets, no design flaws, only flowing lines of purpose, like something that had shaped itself across epochs. The galaxy had long whispered legends about entities from beyond mapped space, but those stories were always buried beneath layers of superstition. Now, in the stark floodlights of human research vessels, fragments of those myths began to take shape. The invaders were not simply advanced, they were refined in ways that suggested evolution rather than innovation. Their circuitry was intertwined with biological patterns, as though their creators sought not machinery or life, but a synthesis of both, a hybrid existence older than the civilizations that trembled at their return. As humanity collected data, the galaxy watched through cautious silence. No empire, federation, or ancient race challenged Earth's claim over the battlefield. For the first time, the Sol system radiated an unspoken aura of dominance, an unexpected, unsettling weight that came not from conquest, but from having shattered what no other civilization had anticipated surviving. Yet Earth remained unsatisfied with victory. Humanity had learned long ago that winning a single battle meant nothing if the war beyond it remained. Misunderstood. And so the global intelligence networks cast their reach deeper into the void, mapping gravitational anomalies, tracking subspace whispers, and decoding the dying beacons left behind by frontier systems consumed by the Armada's earlier sweep. Every clue pointed toward the same chilling truth. The fleet humanity had destroyed was only one of many. Across the far reaches of the galaxy, similar incursions had occurred, some repelled by ancient megastructures humanity had only recently learned existed, others ending with the silent extinguishing of entire star clusters. The pattern was unmistakable. Something had awakened from the void beyond the Perseus Gap, something that moved like a tidal force across cosmic history, resurfacing only when conditions aligned in ways unfathomable to younger species. And humanity, unprepared in the eyes of the galaxy, yet secretly preparing itself for generations, had been the first to defeat one of these armadas. The implications rippled across interstellar space. Galactic summits convened without Earth's permission, arguing endlessly about humanity's unexpected strength. Skeptical species demanded explanations, fearful species demanded alliances, and a few, those ancient races burdened with memories of conflicts older than the Milky Way's current spiral, fell into a silence that revealed far more than their words. They recognized the enemy, not through direct memory, but through inherited dread echoed across deep ancestral archives. Humanity had stepped onto a stage built long before it had learned to stand. Yet Earth pushed forward. Exploration vessels launched toward the edges of the battlefield to retrieve the largest intact hull fragment, a monolithic crescent of alien structure still pulsing with residual energy that seemed to resist entropy itself. When humanity's scanners pierced its layers, they uncovered spatial distortions nested like dormant organs. The fragment's internal architecture defied Euclidean logic, folding into itself through pockets of manipulated vacuum. It was not merely a broken piece of a ship. It was a message. Not carved, not written, not intended for eyes or minds. But a message nevertheless. It spoke of scale, a scale humanity had never encountered, a civilization whose understanding of space-time flowed as naturally as Earth's rivers, a species that viewed stars not as distant points of light, but as materials to sculpt, rearrange, or extinguish according to their needs. The fragment revealed traces of collapsed dimensions, hinted at technologies that manipulated not just gravitational fields, but the very rules that govern them. Humanity, in the quiet halls of its hidden laboratories, felt both exhilaration and dread. For the first time, humanity had found a challenge worthy of its limitless ambition. For the first time, the unknown was not an abstract curiosity. It was a looming force pressing against the boundaries of the Sol system. As the analysis continued, humanity unlocked the most staggering revelation yet. Beneath the layered architecture of the fragment, deep within the resonant heart of its impossible geometry, lay a decayed imprint. Not a consciousness, nor a mind, but the fossilized echo of something that had once guided the ship. Something that resembled intelligence only in the faintest sense, yet stretched far beyond the concept of sentience. It was a command impulse, a directive older than starlight. It conveyed neither emotion nor intent, only inevitability. The fleet had not come to invade or conquer. It had been searching. Not for Earth, not for humanity, but for a signal, a specific resonance, a phenomenon once emitted by civilizations long gone. Humanity's destruction of the fleet did not deter the unknown origin. It alerted it. When this truth reached Earth's leadership, unease shifted into urgency. Humanity understood that the true threat had not yet arrived. It had only been awakened by the collapse of its vanguard. Across the planet, preparations intensified. Orbital defense lattices grew denser. The Aegis array expanded its reach, anchoring new gravitational pylons into Lagrange points. Shipyards, once operating at full capacity, now entered an accelerated production cycle designed to produce vessels capable of confronting enemies on scales beyond planetary defense. Humanity's engineers pored over every scrap of alien technology, not to imitate it, but to understand the principles beneath it. They sought to decipher the logic of a species that shaped dimensions as fluidly as humanity shaped metal. They understood that they could never match the ancient civilization's age, but age was not humanity's weapon. Adaptability was, ingenuity was, defiance was. Earth's strength had always come from learning faster than its enemies expected. And now humanity studied the void with a hunger that unsettled even its allies. As the threat escalated, humanity turned inward as well, reflecting on its own origins, its own resilience. For centuries, Earth had fought wars, survived catastrophes, and rebuilt itself through each cycle of ruin and progress. Humanity had endured plagues, climate collapse, resource shortages, and global conflicts, emerging each time stronger, more unified, more inventive. The species that once gazed upward, with dreams now stared into the abyss, with understanding. Humanity did not seek war. Humanity sought survival. And survival demanded mastery of the unknown. News of the upcoming threat leaked across the planet and its colonies. Some civilians responded with fear, others with determination, but most with a uniquely human combination of both, an emotional duality that drove innovation at unprecedented speeds. Citizens volunteered for research, for ship crews, for planetary engineering projects. Entire industries pivoted overnight towards supporting the monumental mobilization. From the deserts of Nevada to the plains of Mongolia, new installations rose like metallic forests, vast antenna arrays designed to probe the deep void for any sign of the approaching power. Cities dimmed their skylines to preserve energy for orbital infrastructure. Space elevators ran tirelessly as they ferried personnel and supplies to the expanding defense grid encircling Earth. Even as humanity prepared for war, it reached deeper into understanding. The interrogation of the alien fragment revealed that the enemy's technology relied on a form of hyperdimensional navigation that could bypass physical detectors entirely. The next fleet would not announce itself with gravitational disturbances or long-range echoes. It could appear without warning anywhere within reach. This realization forced humanity to evolve faster than it ever had before. Earth's researchers devised new detection methods, probing fluctuations in quantum coherence, monitoring dark matter drift patterns, tracking distortions in cosmic background radiation. Humanity built networks that intertwined mathematics with intuition, science with instinct, machine learning with human imagination. And through this synthesis, something extraordinary emerged. An anomaly detected at the fringe of the Oort cloud, a tremor in the vacuum, a brief ripple in the fabric of space-time that did not match any known natural phenomenon. Humanity knew instantly what it was. The next wave. But this one was different. It was larger, slower, more deliberate. This wave was not a scouting force, nor a vanguard, nor a fragment of something greater. It was the beginning of a true offensive, a shape forming in the void beyond the solar frontier, a mass so immense that even preliminary readings suggested structures spanning hundreds of miles, possibly thousands, coalescing through methods that defied comprehension. Humanity braced. The galaxy held its breath. The void stirred, and something vast began to emerge, not as individual ships, but as a singular construct, a leviathan of engineered space-time, awakening from the dark with the inevitability of a rising continent. Humanity understood then that the battle against the first, Armada, had not been a victory. It had been an invitation, a beacon, a warning to the ancient power that the galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed. The Leviathan flickered into partial visibility beyond the Oort cloud, a world-sized wound in the vacuum, and humanity's senses trembled beneath the magnitude of its arrival. Earth prepared for the greatest trial in its history, not because it believed it would survive, but because humanity had never once surrendered, not to nature, not to time, not to any force that sought to define its limits. Humanity would fight. Humanity would innovate. Humanity would endure. Because that was what it had always done. And now, as the void-born Leviathan advanced toward the cradle of human civilization, the galaxy finally understood the truth that had shaped Earth's legacy from the beginning. Humanity did not wait for salvation. Humanity became it. The second emergence began not with brilliance, but with distortion, an unsettling warp in the distant reaches of the solar system where sunlight weakened into a frail whisper. The Oort cloud, a sphere of drifting ice and ancient debris encircling the system, trembled beneath a force no human instrument had been designed to withstand. The fabric of space rippled like a dark ocean disturbed by an unseen leviathan, and humanity sensed the moment the void took its next breath. The construct that appeared was not a fleet. It did not resemble anything that could be measured by human concepts such as width, height, or mass. Instead, it manifested like a horizon turned on its side, a sweeping curvature of engineered darkness, a continent of machinery suspended in the black. Its emergence stretched the visual spectrum beyond its limits, bending starlight into arcs and halos that danced like broken auroras across the solar frontier. Humanity watched through long-range observatories, each frame revealing more of the impossible structure. This was no armada. This was an entity, singular, unified, disciplined in its silence. It moved not as a group of vessels, but as a singular organism, a superstructure woven from metal that felt older than cosmic dust. Its surface writhed with subtle, undulating patterns, as though its hull were not a barrier, but a membrane between realities. The Leviathan emanated a gravitational field strong enough to deform the orbits of unremarkable comet fragments, drawing them in and pulverizing them with indifferent precision. Each particle absorbed into the construct dissolved into streams of energy that fed its internal workings. Humanity realized this machine did not simply travel, it fed, consumed, grew. It was a predator of systems, and it had come for soul. Earth's defense networks ignited in immediate response. Alerts cascaded across planetary infrastructure, and humanity entered a mobilization phase unlike any in its history. Every orbital platform aligned its arrays. Every defense grid locked into readiness. Every research laboratory shifted to rapid analysis, data streaming in torrents as scientists attempted to decipher the Leviathan's structural logic. But the structure defied logic. It was not built, it was sculpted by forces humanity barely understood. Massive architectural ribs arched outward like the bones of celestial beasts long extinct. Spires extended from its core, each emitting unstable pulses of radiation that flickered through wavelengths no human eye could perceive. At times, the Leviathan seemed almost translucent, fading into distortions that hinted it existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions. And then came the resonance. A deep subspace tremor rippled through the solar system. It was not a signal in any traditional sense, nor a communication intended to be understood. It was simply presence, an assertion, a declaration of ancient power, a reminder that something older than the galaxy itself had awakened and now drifted toward humanity's home. The tremor shook Earth's satellites, destabilized low-band quantum channels, and sent static screaming through communication networks. On the planet below, civilians felt the resonance as a distant pressure in the air, like the atmospheric tension before a storm no human had ever experienced. Humanity steeled itself. For generations, Earth had prepared for threats born within the cosmos, rogue asteroids, hostile civilizations, unknown anomalies. Yet nothing had prepared it for the sheer scale and intent of the Leviathan. Its arrival was not an invasion. It was a reclamation, a continuation of something begun long before Earth had cooled from molten rock. And humanity stood in its path. The Aegis array, the crown jewel of Earth's unseen defenses, mobilized first. Its gravitational pylons activated in synchronized pulses, forming wave patterns across space that resembled the rippling rings left behind by a stone cast into a still lake. These waves converged into a single point ahead of the Leviathan, attempting to distort its trajectory. But the construct did not slow. It adapted. The Leviathan's surface altered, plate by plate, microscopic aperture by aperture. It shifted into shapes that absorbed the gravitational distortion, bending it inward as though feeding off the energy meant to repel it. Humanity watched with mounting dread as the Leviathan converted a defensive maneuver into fuel. Earth understood then that this was not a straightforward confrontation of force against force. The Leviathan was not a machine built to wage war. It was a cosmic process, an event sculpted into physical form. Humanity had not encountered an enemy. It had encountered a phenomenon. Yet humanity refused to retreat. The second line of defense activated. The Helios Lancers, a network of solar-powered particle platforms positioned throughout the inner solar system. They charged with the raw energy of the sun, ions swirling into compressed lances of searing plasma. When the barrage launched, the solar system lit with the brilliance of a newborn star, streaks of radiance slicing through space toward the Leviathan. The beams struck the Leviathan's surface and diffused, absorbed, redirected, swallowed. The construct pulsed once in response, and a shockwave of muted energy radiated outward. It carried no heat, no visible destruction, yet wave patterns across Earth's sensors revealed the truth. The Leviathan had assessed the attack, adapted to it, and neutralized it without exerting effort. Humanity's greatest weapons had been dismissed as irrelevant. But irrelevance was not defeat. Humanity recalibrated instantly. Earth's tactical networks reanalyzed terabytes of sensor data, searching for anomalies in the Leviathan's behavior, anything that could hint at vulnerability. And then, finally, something appeared. In the deep folds of the Leviathan's structure, nest. Beneath layers of undulating machinery, sensors detected a region of instability, a faint harmonic imbalance. Something about this section did not move with the same fluidity as the rest. It was subtle, nearly imperceptible, like a single dissonant note within a cosmic symphony. Humanity seized upon it. The third line of defense prepared, not with brute force, but with precision. Tens of thousands of microvessels launched from Earth and Mars, each the size of a human torso, each packed with advanced gravitational projectors. They swarmed toward the Leviathan like a cloud of mechanical pollen drifting through the void. Their mission was not to destroy, but to probe, to push that dissonant region, to force it to vibrate, to amplify its instability. They moved in synchronized spirals, firing micropulses of inverted gravity that targeted the harmonic floor. For the first time, the Leviathan reacted with something akin to resistance. Its immense form shuddered, portions of its surface contracted. An array of crystalline protrusions extended outward, flashing with energy patterns that slipped between wavelengths, blinking in and out of human perception. And then, suddenly, the Leviathan retaliated. Not with beams, not with weapons, with silence. A pocket of space-time collapsed around the microvessels. They froze, motionless, inert, suspended in a field where time did not progress. Millions of human-created machines became statues in the vacuum, trapped in a moment they would never escape. Humanity understood then that the Leviathan did not destroy. It erased. Yet even in this setback, humanity found revelation. The collapse field radiated from the Leviathan's unstable region. That flaw was not a weakness in its armor, it was a limitation in its ability to project control over its own structure. A boundary, a horizon. The Leviathan was not omnipotent. It was vast. It was ancient. But it was finite. Humanity adapted the moment it learned this truth. Earth's researchers shifted from trying to destroy the Leviathan to trying to overload the instability. The strategy was no longer about finding a weakness. They had one. Now the goal was to escalate it, to force the Leviathan to expend energy compensating for internal flaws. The fourth line of defense, buried deep beneath Mars, activated next. The echo resonators, experimental devices capable of exploiting quantum harmonics, fired pulses of directed oscillation into space. They were designed for communication across impossible distances, not for warfare, but humanity now wielded them as weapons of resonance. The pulses struck the instability. The Leviathan convulsed. Its vast form rippled like a living tapestry. A cascade of dimensional distortions rippled from its core, briefly revealing structures that defied comprehension, shifting corridors of geometry that seemed to fold into negative space. And in that moment of exposure, humanity glimpsed something more profound than the Leviathan itself. It was not a ship. It was not a weapon. It was an ark. Inside its depths, suspended in chambers shaped by distorted physics, humanity saw the blurred silhouettes of dormant forms, creatures, beings, or entities preserved in states that resembled both life and simulation. They were not passengers. They were cargo, units of something far older than modern biology. The Leviathan was a vessel carrying the remnants of a civilization long extinct. Or perhaps not extinct. Perhaps dormant. Perhaps waiting. Humanity's triumph against the first Armada had awakened the Leviathans, not because they sought conquest, but because they followed a directive set by creators who no longer walked the galaxy. Humanity realized it was facing not simply an enemy, but the legacy of a civilization that had shaped the early universe. And that legacy was now drifting toward Earth. Humanity's resolve hardened. They would not allow an ancient directive to determine the fate of their world. The fifth line of defense, the most secretive of all, activated now. Hidden in the depths of Earth's mantle, in sealed chambers built from exotic materials recovered from cosmic ruins, lay the Soul Core Ascenders, gravitational anchors designed to manipulate the sun's heliospheric output. They were humanity's final countermeasure. As the Leviathan breached the heliopause, the Ascenders ignited. The sun roared. A surge of amplified solar wind blasted outward, not as natural radiation, but as a sculpted storm of charged particles guided by humanity's engineered fields. The solar system lit with furious brilliance as the storm collided with the Leviathan. For the first time, the Leviathan faltered. Its hull darkened. Its surface rippled in erratic patterns. The instability expanded. Humanity had found a way to challenge a force older than galaxies. But the victory was not yet within reach. The Leviathan slowed, not in retreat, but in assessment. It adjusted its orientation, turning its immense form until its core faced Earth. And then it opened. A colossal aperture unfurled like a metallic flower, revealing a vortex of swirling dimensional energy. Within that swirling breach lay shapes, vast, slumbering, ancient. The Ark was awakening, and humanity understood the new phase of the war. The Leviathan was not the threat. What it carried was The release process began. Humanity braced. Because now the galaxy would witness the true meaning of humanity's defiance, resilience, and unwillingness to bow to forces that believed themselves eternal. The storm was coming, and humanity would face it head-on. The Leviathan's aperture widened until it resembled a rift carved into reality itself, a vast, circular, more spiraling inward with layered motion that defied every concept of engineering. It was neither door nor hatch, but an event unfolding within the skin of a living machine. Its edges shimmered with impossible geometry, rippling like the fluid surface of a cosmic tide pool. As the aperture opened, the solar system dimmed, as though the Leviathan pulled not light, but attention itself toward the threshold of its awakening cargo. Deep within the spiraling cavity, giant silhouettes floated in crystalline suspension. Their forms shifted as if they existed simultaneously in multiple states, part biological, part sculpted metal, part something without earthly classification. Dormant figures, each one the size of a human city, hovered in chambers that folded and unfolded with rhythmic pulses, like lungs breathing across dimensions. The Ark's internal systems surged with life. Energy currents traced patterns along its colossal ribs, illuminating regions that had remained dormant for epochs. Humanity realized that the Leviathan was not merely a vessel, but a resurrection engine. It was designed not only to carry its occupants, but to renew them, reconstructing, stabilizing, and preparing them for emergence into whatever environment awaited. Now that environment was the Sol system. Sensors across Earth's fleets detected a synchronized surge of dimensional energy pulsing from the Leviathan's core. This was activation, awakening, the first stage in releasing entities that had once shaped galaxies with their presence. Humanity understood the gravity of what was about to occur. The first Armada had been a probe. The Leviathan was a harbinger. The beings it carried were something else entirely. Humanity had faced fleets, storms, empires, and anomalies, but never entities that had survived the fall of civilizations predating the Milky Way's current spiral. Yet even as the Leviathan ascended toward full activation, humanity's sensors detected something unexpected within the Ark's energy readings. Distress patterns. Not emotional signals, not communication patterns. Rhythmic imperfections in the Ark systems, fluctuations suggesting internal strain. The ancient structure was malfunctioning. Its creators had not died peacefully, they had vanished abruptly, leaving their ark adrift far longer than intended. The Leviathan systems had operated on incomprehensible autonomy for ages, but time had eroded even their precision. The awakening process was unstable. The entities within were not emerging by design, but by reflex, stirred by the loss of the initial Armada and the activation protocols triggered by humanity's defiance. This revelation transformed the nature of the threat. The Leviathan was not executing an attack. It was executing a mandate that no longer matched the universe it had awakened into. Humanity seized this insight and moved with ferocious intent. Every major research hub on Earth, Mars, Luna, and the outer colonies converged on interpreting the Ark's malfunction. They mapped the resonance patterns, the dimensional harmonics, the cycles of internal energy. They sought to understand not the beings within, but the machine around them. Because humanity realized something profound. The true battle was not against the entities inside the Ark. The true battle was against the Ark itself. If humanity could destabilize the resurrection engine, interrupt the process, invert the dimensional flux, or redirect the activation field, then the beings inside would remain dormant, frozen, contained. Earth's strategy crystallized instantly. The goal was not destruction. The goal was prevention. Humanity did not need to defeat the Ark. Humanity needed to stop it from opening. Every system across the Aegis array, the Echo resonators, and the Helios lancers recalibrated. Humanity synchronized its entire defensive grid into a single network, merging every sensor, every field generator, every experimental anchor into a united pulse engine capable of creating a large-scale harmonic interference pattern. For the first time in the solar system's history, humanity prepared to fight a battle not across space, but across frequency. The Leviathan felt the shift. Its aperture expanded further, stretching in impossible contortions, revealing more of the beings within. One figure, massive, sculpted with fractal intricacies, trembled within its chamber. Its dormant energy began to flicker. The Ark increased its output, compensating for the instability. It was accelerating. Humanity accelerated as well. The solar system vibrated with the hum of synchronized power. Orbital rings activated fields that bent local space-time. Mars released its subterranean pulse engines to reinforce the harmonic lattice. Luna triggered gravitational nodes that throbbed with rhythmic determination. Earth itself pulsed. Many civilizations throughout the galaxy had mocked Earth for relying too heavily on its homeworld. They saw it as a weakness, a single planet housing too much of humanity's infrastructure. But now, that concentration became strength. The planet did not emit power from isolated installations. The planet became the installation. Deep within Earth's mantle, the Soul Core Ascenders awakened again. They did not manipulate the sun this time, they synchronized with it. For the first time, humanity harnessed the solar heartbeat itself, syncing planetary rhythm with stellar rhythm, creating a cosmic resonance bridge through which energy flowed in a sculpted torrent. A solar wind surged. Earth's magnetic field intensified. The Aegis array glowed like a celestial crown. Humanity's lattice formed, a harmonic field spanning millions of miles, oscillating in perfect counterfrequency to the Ark's awakening pulse. The moment the two resonance cycles met, the solar system rang like a struck bell. The Leviathan convulsed. Its aperture spasmed, flickering between shapes as the harmonic interference disrupted its activation sequences. The dormant entities inside shuddered, their chambers destabilizing. Their energy flickered with confusion, neither awakening nor resting. Humanity pressed harder. The resonance intensified. The harmonic waves built upon themselves, amplifying through the Aegis array's gravitational anchors. The sun responded with surges of electromagnetic power, funneling through the lattice like fire through channels of glass. The Leviathan's structure rippled violently, plates along its hull folded inward, dimensional apertures snapped shut with concussive force. The Ark's internal systems screamed in frequencies no ear could hear, but every sensor recorded. The awakening process faltered. Humanity had done the unthinkable. It had forced something ancient to hesitate. But hesitation was not defeat. The Leviathan adapted. It recalibrated its harmonics, adjusting the rhythm of its dimensional cycles to counter humanity's antiphase interference. The Ark's internal lights brightened, illuminating chambers where vast silhouettes struggled against their restraints. Earth realized the next stage was coming. The Ark was transitioning into a fallback protocol, one designed not for awakening, but for release. It was preparing to eject the dormant entities. Not resurrected, not fully formed, but released regardless. Humanity faced a catastrophic possibility, an uncontrolled eruption of incomprehensible beings across the solar system, entities half-born, unstable, capable of fracturing space-time with their mere presence. The urgency escalated beyond strategy. Humanity had minutes. Earth's command systems executed the final contingency, a maneuver so extreme it had been debated, restricted, hidden even from most global leadership. It involved the Sun. The Soul Core ascenders surged at maximum capacity, drawing on energy reserves considered untouchable. Their gravitational anchors encircled the solar core in conceptual space, not physically, but mathematically, through fields that resonated with the Sun's fusion heart. Humanity prepared to force the Sun to pulse. Not erupt, not flare. Pulse. A controlled, focused emission of energy strong enough to ripple across the Ark's activation systems and collapse the resonance structures powering the awakening. This maneuver risked destabilizing planetary orbits. It risked triggering solar storms that could damage Earth irreparably. It risked catastrophic failure. Humanity did it anyway, because survival was not optional. The Sun pulsed. A shockwave of perfectly timed solar energy swept through the solar system, a coordinated burst modulated by Earth's defensive lattice. It struck the Leviathan. The Ark's aperture snapped shut instantly, curling inward like a wounded creature. Its surface dimmed. The activation chambers faltered. The entities inside convulsed as their energy cycles collapsed. The dimensional distortion that held them suspended began to unravel. The Ark shuddered. Its entire structure folded. For a moment, it appeared to collapse into itself, a massive, dying star imploding under its own weight. But the Leviathan did not die. It adapted again. The collapse inverted into a contraction, a deliberate, engineered compression. The Levi. Athens sealed its aperture, withdrew its unstable energy, and began folding space around itself in preparation for departure. It was retreating, but humanity understood instantly. It was not retreating out of defeat. It was retreating to call more, to inform the void, to summon others. Humanity had not stopped the awakening. Humanity had stopped the first awakening. The war had only begun. Yet in that moment, when the Leviathan recoiled from the collective defiance of a single species, humanity learned something extraordinary. The Ark had adapted to every threat but one: humanity's unity, humanity's improvisation, humanity's refusal to surrender even to forces that shaped the early universe. The Leviathan folded space-time, vanishing into a ripple of cosmic distortion that faded like a dying echo. The Uit cloud quieted. The stars regained their clarity. Humanity stood alone again. Not safe, not victorious, but unbroken. Earth's defenses dimmed. The Aegis array entered cooldown. The sun returned to stable fusion. Across the solar system, exhausted networks exhaled silent relief. Humanity had survived the second wave. But now the void knew exactly what humanity was capable of. And it would send something far greater. The solar system braced, because the next arrival would not be a harbinger. It would be a reckoning. The solar system held its breath in the aftermath of the Leviathan's retreat. Space returned to quiet, an unsettling, fragile quiet, like the moment before the sky breaks open in a hurricane. Humanity had survived the harbinger, but only by driving it back long enough for the void to take notice. And the void, ancient and watchful, did not remain still for long. In the days following the Ark's disappearance, the galaxy trembled with distant disturbances. Telescopes across human and allied systems captured anomalies unfolding in far reaches of space. Regions once considered stable now bending, collapsing, rearranging under impossible pressures. Energetic distortions rippled through nebulae, warping their luminous clouds into spiraling funnels. Entire star clusters flickered like candles caught in an unseen draft. Something was waking on a cosmic scale. Humanity's analysis networks detected the pattern first, synchronized pulses emanating from dozens of points across the galactic halo. They were not transmissions, they were ignition points, reawakening sequences deep within ancient structures buried in the darkness between spiral arms. The Leviathan had not simply escaped, it had relayed what it had learned. Earth understood with chilling clarity. The ark that humanity had repelled was not the first, nor the last. It was one of thousands, scattered across the galaxy, dormant, patient, waiting for the conditions that would trigger their return. The awakening humanity had interrupted had cascaded through subspace, reactivating every arc tuned to the same ancient directive. Now, across the Milky Way, titans of a forgotten civilization stirred in the dark. Humanity stood at the center of an awakening storm. Yet even as fear threatened to overshadow determination, something remarkable happened. For the first time in recorded galactic history, dozens of civilizations turned their attention toward Earth not with skepticism, but with hope. Humanity's defiance had proven what no ancient technology, no long-lived empire, no esteemed federation had managed. The Leviathans could be held back. The Ark could be forced into retreat. Humanity, the species that had ignored every summit, had become the only force capable of challenging the old galactic order. But none of that changed the truth. Earth faced the incoming convergence alone. The first wave had been a probe, the second a test, the third would be the end of worlds. Humanity did not respond with despair. Humanity prepared. Across the solar system, an unprecedented transformation unfolded. The Aegis array expanded into a colossal web of interlocking gravitational architecture that stretched from Mercury's orbit to the asteroid belt. Towers of energy rose from planetary surfaces, merging with orbital rings and deep space pylons to form the world's first cohesive interplanetary defense sphere. The Sun became the beating heart of a weaponized star system. Its magnetic fields, once merely natural phenomena, were sculpted into immense conduits of controlled radiation through the Sol core ascenders. Humanity treated its star not as a celestial body, but as a strategic engine, one that could pulse, flare, and resonate on command. Mars, long the proving ground of human ingenuity, activated its mantle-deep resonators, converting the planet into a harmonic stabilizer capable of anchoring dimensional fields. Luna, wrapped in superconductive lattices, became the central node of a planetary AI network that could simulate billions of battlefield scenarios per second. Humanity transformed the solar system into a fortress, not to hide, but to confront. Even as the defenses took shape, fleets massed in the outer system. Thousands of human warships, sleek, adaptive, and built with the lessons carved from the Ark's encounter, aligned across a formation that resembled a celestial storm front. These ships did not rely on brute force or singular technology. They embodied humanity's greatest strength, rapid evolution. Each vessel carried modular systems, interchangeable power cores, shape-shifting armor, and weapons capable of recalibrating mid-battle. Humanity had designed a fleet not to match the ancient arcs in power, but to outmaneuver them in unpredictability. These ships were the physical expression of human nature, resilient, defiant, unbound by tradition. For the first time in history, Earth broadcast a message to the galaxy, not in language, but in action. A beacon ignited at the edge of the heliopause, shining across the cosmic sea like a flare of defiance. It was not a surrender. It was not a plea for aid. It was a declaration that humanity was ready. And then the stars began to bend. At first, the incoming distortions resembled distant nebular flickers, tiny fluctuations in the fabric of space. But as they grew, their shape became unmistakable. Curved horizons, spiraling fissures, dimensional depressions forming kilometers across. The arrival of something incomprehensibly vast. One by one, arc signatures emerged. 10, 20, 50, more. A formation of leviathans descended upon the galaxy's center like a cosmic tide. They came from above, below, and beyond mapped coordinates, sourced from the forgotten voids of ancient epochs, each arc impossibly immense, each one humming with the dormant weight of civilizations lost to time. The galaxy trembled, but humanity did not. Humanity had been born from adversity, forged through conflict, refined by catastrophe, sustained by imagination. And now the species that had always seemed small compared to the cosmic giants finally stepped into its true scale. As the first arc crossed into heliospheric range, the solar system lit with purpose. The Aegis array activated, the sun pulsed, Earth resonated, Mars harmonized, Luna synchronized. The defensive lattice expanded into a luminous net woven across millions of miles. The arcs approached without hesitation. Humanity fired first. The solar wind erupted in a sculpted blast, shaped into a spiraling lance of electromagnetic fury. It tore across the void, striking the lead arc with the force of an engineered solar storm. The Leviathan's hull recoiled, but did not absorb the energy as before. Humanity had changed the rhythm, altered the sequence, broken the previous pattern. The arc struggled to adapt. Humanity pressed the advantage. The Aegis array twisted gravitational fields into spirals of compression that warped the wake of incoming arcs. Mars fired harmonic pulses into the dimensional fabric around them. Earth's surface emitters projected interference into their activation cycles. For the first time in tens of thousands of years, the arcs faltered. The galaxy watched as humanity, young, determined, fearless, forced Titans to stagger. But the arcs did not retreat. They adapted. Their surfaces reshaped into fractal patterns. Dimensional fields expanded outward. Their resonance harmonics shifted to new frequencies, punching through humanity's interference. They opened apertures. The galaxy braced for the release of ancient beings. But nothing emerged, because humanity struck first. A contingent of human vessels, small, agile, designed for precision, raced into the breach. These ships were not warships. They were infiltrators, each carrying resonance disruptors calibrated to the arc's internal harmonics. They dove toward the apertures, sacrificing maneuverability for proximity. As the apertures expanded to release dormant entities, humanity unleashed the disruptors. The effect was immediate. The arc's internal chambers convulsed. The dormant beings flickered in and out of dimensional stability. Their resurrection cycles collapsed before completion. Humanity had denied the arcs their purpose. And with that denial, the ancient directive faltered. But the arcs responded with fury. Fields of collapsing space erupted around them, zones of annihilation that devoured anything caught within. Human ships warped, stretched, fragmented, yet for every vessel lost, 3 more adapted, altering their field geometry, rewriting their own physics on the fly. The battle was not a clash of weapons. It was a clash of evolution. Humanity was not faster, was not stronger, was not older, but humanity was stubborn. And that stubbornness became strategy. Across the battlefield, one truth became clear. The arcs could not adapt faster than humanity could innovate. Their ancient protocols, designed for an age when no species challenged them, were rigid beneath their illusion of fluidity. Humanity exploited every static assumption, every outdated resonance, every flaw buried beneath millions of years of dormancy. The tide turned. One arc collapsed inward, its dimensional architecture unraveling. Another lost its harmonic coherence, drifting helplessly into the void. A third attempted to flee, only to be caught in a gravitational snare woven by the Aegis array and torn apart. The galaxy watched in awe. Humanity, the species that had ignored every summit, had become the fulcrum of cosmic history. But victory demanded its final act. The largest arc, the central Titan, activated a dimensional core unlike any seen before. Space twisted, stars bent. A singularity began forming, not to destroy, but to reset. A galaxy-wide purge sequence designed to return everything to equilibrium, erasing trillions of lives. Humanity understood the stakes. The solar system's entire defense sphere redirected power into one final, impossible maneuver. The sun pulsed again. Earth resonated again. Mars harmonized again. Luna aligned again. The solar system became a single instrument. Humanity became the hand that played it. All energy converged into a singular harmonic strike. It pierced the arc's core. For a moment, the universe held still. Then the core collapsed inward, and the arc with it. The purge sequence dissolved. The dimensional fields evaporated. The threat ended. Silence reclaimed the void. Humanity did not cheer. Humanity exhaled. The galaxy shifted. Political boundaries trembled. Ancient powers bowed their heads. Earth, the world that once declined every invitation, had become the guardian of an entire quadrant of the galaxy. Not because it sought domination, but because it refused extinction. Humanity had proven that courage could reshape the cosmos, that adaptability could challenge eternity, that defiance was a force older than the stars. And in the aftermath of the greatest battle in recorded history, the universe finally understood. Humanity was not insignificant. Humanity was not unprepared. Humanity was not alone. Humanity was the storm. And the storm had only just begun to rise.